Hello, welcome to Interesting History YouTube channel. Please click the like button, subscribe, and comment below to see more interesting history. In 1956, the world stood at the brink of an international confrontation that would change the course of history. The Suez Crisis, a diplomatic and military debacle involving Egypt, Israel, France, and the United Kingdom, not only reshaped the geopolitics of the Middle East, but also left a legacy that influences global politics, economics, and international relations to this day. So, buckle up as we embark on a time-traveling adventure to unravel the complexities of the Suez Crisis and its long-lasting effects. Setting the stage, the world pre-Suez Crisis. Let's crank up the time machine and zoom back to the mid-20th century, shall we? Picture this, a world freshly pressed from the ironing board of World War II, lines redrawn, empires wobbling, and a Cold War chilling the air faster than a popsicle in Siberia. It's a time when decolonization is the buzzword in cafes from Paris to Pretoria, and everyone's looking to grab a piece of the geopolitical pie. Enter the Middle East, not just a sandbox for adventurers, but a treasure chest brimming with oil, history, and intrigue. Right at the heart of this enticing region slithers the Suez Canal, an aquatic superhighway that's less about leisurely cruises and more about empire logistics and oily lifelines. Picture it as the VIP lane for about 2/3 of Europe's oil supply, guarded by the British Bulldog and its French Poodle, who are both keen on keeping their paws firmly on this prize. So there we have it, a world stage dressed and ready, with tensions simmering on the geopolitical stove, waiting for just the right ingredient to turn a simmer into a boil. Spoiler alert, that ingredient is about to be tossed in by none other than Egypt's own Gamal Abdel Nasser, setting the scene for a showdown that would send shockwaves far beyond the sandy shores of the Suez. Stay tuned, because the mid-20th century is about to serve a history lesson that's as spicy as it is pivotal. And trust me, you don't want to miss the drama that unfolds next in this global theater. The catalyst. Nasser's nationalization of the Suez Canal. On a steamy summer day in 1956, the Suez Canal, a swath of water more fought over than the last slice of pizza at a party, found itself at the heart of a geopolitical maelstrom. The man of the hour, Gamal Abdel Nasser, Egypt's answer to the age-old quest for a leader with swagger and substance, decided it was time for a game changer. With the flair of a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat, Nasser proclaimed the nationalization of the Suez Canal. This wasn't just any random act of economic policy. It was a declaration of independence from the lingering shadows of colonialism and a bold step towards financing the Aswan High Dam, a project that promised to power Egypt's leap into modernity. This move had all the subtlety of a sledgehammer at a tea party, striking at the very heart of British and French interests. You see, until then, the Suez Canal had been the exclusive playground of European powers, a vital artery for oil and commerce that London and Paris were loath to relinquish. Nasser's announcement was akin to telling the British and French that their VIP pass had been revoked, and Egypt was reclaiming its ticket booth. Imagine the scene, a world where colonial powers played chess with nations, and Nasser just flipped the board. This wasn't just about control of a waterway. It was a statement, a challenge to the old order, and a beacon of hope for nations yearning for self-determination. In that moment, Nasser didn't just nationalize a canal. He navigated Egypt into the epicenter of a geopolitical showdown, reshuffling the deck of international relations. And as the pieces began to move, the world watched, waiting to see how the dominoes would fall in this high-stakes game of nations. The tripartite aggression. A dubious alliance forms. In a move reminiscent of a secret society plotting world domination, Britain, France, and Israel huddled under the cloak of conspiracy to hatch a plan as audacious as it was risky. This was no ordinary alliance. It was the kind of partnership you'd expect in a spy novel, where the protagonists driven by desperation and a dash of hubris, decide to take matters into their own hands. The goal: to reclaim the Suez Canal from Nasser's grip, a task easier said than done. Like a trio of magicians planning their greatest trick, the three nations concocted a scheme that was as bold as it was fraught with potential pitfalls. Israel would play the role of the initial aggressor, invading Egypt under the pretext of securing its borders and neutralizing a threat. Britain and France, meanwhile, would don the masks of peacekeepers, swooping in ostensibly to separate the belligerents, but with eyes firmly on the prize, regaining control of the canal. The plan, executed in October 1956, had all the subtlety of a neon sign in a dark alley, blinking "conspiracy" for the whole world to see. This audacious gambit was supposed to be a swift, surgical operation. Instead, it turned into the geopolitical equivalent of opening Pandora's box. The tripartite aggression, as it would come to be known, was a high-stakes poker game, where the players grossly underestimated the resolve of their opponents and the keen eye of the global community. The world watched, popcorn in hand, as the plot unraveled. Far from restoring control over the Suez and preserving their waning imperial prestige, Britain, France, and Israel found themselves in the international hot seat, their actions sparking outrage and condemnation. The dice had been cast, the stage set for a global showdown that would redefine the rules of international engagement. In this game of chess, the tripartite alliance found themselves playing checkers, a miscalculation that would cost them dearly in the court of world opinion and alter the course of Middle Eastern politics forever. Global reaction. The world takes sides. When the news of the Suez Caper broke, the global reaction was akin to dropping a Mentos into a cola bottle. Sudden, explosive, and leaving quite the sticky mess. The United States, playing the role of the world's hall monitor, was decidedly not amused. In a plot twist no one saw coming, the U.S., traditionally cozy with Britain and France, gave its transatlantic pals the cold shoulder. Uncle Sam's message was clear. We're all for checking Soviet expansion, but doing a colonial throwback isn't the look we're going for. Over in the USSR, Khrushchev and co. were having a field day. Despite being neck-deep in their Hungarian quagmire, they couldn't resist the opportunity to wag a nuclear-sized finger at the West, adding a dollop of Cold War tension to an already simmering stew. You invade Egypt, we rain on your parade, they seem to say, proving that geopolitical snark knows no ideological bounds. The United Nations, that grand assembly of global gabfest, found its voice too, in a remarkable display of unity, or perhaps a collective desire not to start World War III over a canal. It called for an immediate ceasefire. Here was the UN, stepping into the schoolyard brawl, blowing the whistle, and sending everyone to their corners. It was a moment of vindication for the institution, showcasing its potential as more than just an international debating club. As nations picked sides, it was evident that the Suez Crisis wasn't just a regional scuffle, but a full-blown international soap opera. The world was glued to its seats, watching as the old empires learned that their club memberships had expired, and the new superpowers flexed their diplomatic muscles. In the grand chessboard of international relations, the Suez Crisis was a checkmate moment, proving that in the modern age, the pen and public opinion might just be mightier than the sword. The endgame: withdrawal and resolution. As the curtains began to draw on this dramatic episode, the tripartite alliance found themselves stuck between a rock and a hard place. With the global community wagging its finger in disapproval and economic sanctions biting at their heels like an irate chihuahua, Britain, France, and Israel had little choice but to beat a hasty retreat. Picture it as the walk of shame on the international stage, a diplomatic about-face executed under the watchful eyes of a world that had grown unexpectedly assertive. By March 1957, the trio's grand plan had unraveled faster than a cheap sweater in a cat's claw, marking the crisis's denouement with a whimper rather than a bang. This wasn't just a retreat, it was a full-blown admission that the days of gunboat diplomacy were sailing off into the sunset, leaving behind a new era where superpowers held sway and the court of global opinion mattered. Egypt, under Nasser's steady hand, emerged more than just intact. It strutted onto the world stage with the Suez Canal under its arm, basking in the glow of nationalist pride and newfound respect. Meanwhile, the invaders, much like guests overstaying their welcome at a party, slinked away, their imperial ambitions dented, and their international standing sporting a few new scratches. This chess match of international relations had seen its kings and its pawns, but as the board cleared, it was evident that the rules of the game had changed. No longer could powers, big or small, move pieces across the global board without regard for the burgeoning forces of nationalism, international law, and public opinion. The Suez Crisis had drawn the battle lines not just in the sands of Egypt, but in the minds and policies of nations worldwide, signaling a shift towards a more interconnected and vocal global community. The aftermath, a new world order post-Suez. The world didn't just wake up nursing a geopolitical hangover. It woke up to a changed landscape where the chessboard of international power had been knocked over and set up anew. Britain and France, the once mighty overlords of canal diplomacy, found their crowns a bit tarnished, their swagger diminished in the cold, harsh light of a new day. They hadn't just lost control of a canal, they'd been handed their walking papers in the emerging world order. Across the pond, the United States flexed its muscles, not with the brashness of a schoolyard bully, but with the calculated calm of a chess grandmaster, seizing the moment to step into the shoes, or should we say the giant boots, left by the receding tides of British and French influence. The Soviet Union, too, found its footing on this new ground, keen to spread its wings and project its power, proving that the Cold War was as much about winning hearts and minds as it was about missile counts. The aftermath of the Suez Crisis was akin to watching the old guard trying to dance to a new tune, stumbling over the steps of decolonization and superpower diplomacy. The crisis didn't just redraw the geopolitical map, it was the bellwether of a shift towards a bipolar world, where two superpowers would hold sway, their nuclear arsenals lending weight to their words in a way that colonial armies could never match. This reshuffle wasn't merely about who held the aces, it was about recognizing the deck itself had changed. Nations, big and small, now played with the knowledge that the world's eyes were upon them, and that the court of public opinion could be as decisive as any military maneuver. In this brave new world, influence was measured not just in naval fleets or colonies, but in the ability to shape narratives, sway public opinion, and navigate the intricate dance of diplomacy on a global stage. The aftermath of Suez wasn't just a new chapter in the history books, it was the script for a whole new play in the drama of international relations. Echoes of Suez, the lasting impact. The Suez Crisis isn't just a relic tucked away in the dusty shelves of history. It's a whisper in the wind, a ghost that still haunts the corridors of global politics and energy strategy. This mid-century showdown did more than just redraw the geopolitical map. It dropped a beat that the world still grooves to over 60 years later. Let's not kid ourselves. The Middle East continues to be the nightclub where the world's energy dances, with every move on this dance floor sending global markets into either euphoria or panic. The Suez Saga served up a masterclass in the perils of flexing military muscle over diplomatic dialogue and highlighted the strategic vulnerability of our energy supplies. Fast forward to today, and you'll find the lesson hasn't lost its edge. Every time there's a hiccup in the Strait of Hormuz, you can hear the echo of Suez whispering, "Told you so." But it's not all doom and gloom. The crisis also schooled us on the power of international law and cooperation. It was like the world decided to form a book club, and the Charter of the United Nations was the first pick. Suddenly, small nations had a voice. and the big boys had to listen, sometimes grudgingly. The crisis underscored that in the chess game of international relations, pawns could corner kings, and public opinion could checkmate armies. So as we navigate the choppy waters of the 21st century, with its geopolitical squabbles and energy jitters, let's keep the Suez lessons in our back pocket. It's a tale that teaches us the importance of playing nice, thinking ahead, and maybe, just maybe, understanding that in the global village, everyone's fate is intertwined. The Suez Crisis, not just a history lesson, but a blueprint for navigating our interconnected world.